like your brain is designed to keep you alive. So if it's constantly receiving this stress response, right? So it has a dopamine response. Yay, love that. But if all of this stress is required to get that dopamine response, then it's going to be like, no, girl, we're not doing that. And do you find dieting super duper stressful where you start feeling the reward of what you're doing, but then all of a sudden you get this kind of crash of stress and lack of motivation and so on? Well, if you are, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what is actually happening from a mental standpoint and help you understand why motivation fades and the brain and science behind reward, stress, and consistency. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Welcome. For those of you new to this podcast, we banter for the first 15 minutes or so and talk about our lives, reality TV, babies, and puppies. So if you don't want to hear anything about that, look at the show notes below to check out when we start our conversation. Hello. Love is Blind. So Amanda's in Love is Blind, Minneapolis.
Yeah, big sigh. So because my mom and I needed a Sunday show since she comes over, helps, and that way I can like do adult things while she takes care of the baby, and then I intermittently breastfeed. And so we try to watch Adolescence.
Yeah.
So, but we have to pay attention for that. And I'm going in and out of like the living room, and she's with a baby, so she's like, we can't watch this. So she's like, we need some stupid show. And I was like, well, there's a new season of Love is Blind. She's like, what's that? And I was like, and so she's into it.
Love it.
So we'll have that every Sunday. So I won't be as binge watched as it is. But so here's my thought so far is like, it's very like, why are you guys talking about this? Like they were talking about like, do you like cuddling? I love cuddling. Oh, I'm such a good cuddler. Like, and I'm like, if this
very
is somebody
surface level.
Yeah. Okay. That's what it is. It's very surface level. I'm like, okay, you guys are supposed to be marrying this person. Like then there was one girl where I'm like, she's just trauma dumping everything, like with the mom, that's the overdose.
Yep.
And she's like, I just want, like, I can hear her like trying to grasp at a family to choose her to be safe and like secure.
Right.
And then there was the other two, and I was like, oh, that's funny. The anxious attachment and the avoidant attachment. And then they were talking, I was like, oh, they're the perfect like couple to get together. Like they're not the perfect couple to get together, but like
the normal couple.
That gets together. Yeah. And then there's the guy who reminds me a lot of the art dealer.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be good.
Oh,
hopefully
it's good. I would say it's Love is Bland. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is very surface level. And the one girl who actually goes a bit deeper, you'll see how it kind of backfires.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been watching all the things like after the show. And one of the girls said, well, that was the moment I really knew. And it was like them dancing. And I'm like,
they were like, there was a lot of like, this is kind of not interesting.
Right.
Where that, because what is it, season 8?
I think so.
So season 7 is the first season I've watched.
Right.
And you were saying that wasn't even that, it was a good season, but it wasn't as good as the other seasons.
Yeah.
And then one of my clients messaged me and she said, you have to watch the foreign ones, that they're much better.
Ooh.
And I said, okay. And she said Sweden. And I was like, okay. Like, is it because we don't know what they're saying? Or
right.
Like what?
No.
Take my vitamins.
Yeah, I just took mine. Funny. So I have so many things to talk about. First thing is my soberish
California.
So we'll call it my soberish journey. I have just decided that I want to, I've been deciding this for years, just recreate my relationship with alcohol in general. And I've talked about it with my clients. I'm talked about on here, just that association I have with a nice day being, oh, it's a nice day. Like, let's go somewhere and get a drink.
Yeah.
Right. When it's really like, no, let's just go enjoy the sun and the people. And you don't need to drink to do that, just because I've worked so hard on all the other areas of my life. And alcohol still seems to have that association where I want it to be a choice if I want to have it or not, but not this, like, this equals this, this plus this equals this. So this weekend, I went out to watch March Madness. Found out this morning my bracket's completely busted. But
bummer.
Yeah. And
where'd you guys go?
We went to the backyard at Desert Ridge.
Oh, okay.
And they had I looked ahead and they had some non-alcoholic options.
Just the two of you?
And funny story about that. So then I bought 1906 Off Duty, which is a microdose like THC and CBD dill. And I was really nervous because I hadn't taken it. I should have taken it beforehand, but it was fine. I felt a bit more relaxed. And then we came home and I was like, let's just go home and like, we'll just eat dinner and I'll try another one, you know? And then it was the second one. I was like, oh, hello. I was like, hey, I'm feeling good, you know? And for those of you listening, and I know a lot of our, like, there's a good handful of our clients that are completely sober. I didn't necessarily choose that route for myself. I might incorporate drinks in over time. I'm just trying, for me, honestly, guys, like I was searching for the buzz, but it required a lot of drinks to feel it. And like, that's not healthy. So I want to titrate down and maybe, you know, only like I talked about, have it on special occasions or when I'm traveling, you know, because that's honestly, I just want to be able to like be in a pool and have a drink, you know, which still is a, you know,
an association.
But it's a, you know, a choice that I'm making. Maybe I don't some days. I don't know what that looks like. So I'm not set in stone of what it looks like. I want it to be my experience. And so it's nice though, because it's so trendy. It's so trendy. Now my entire like Explorer page on Instagram is like,
oh, really?
All of these very successful people who stopped drinking.
Who?
God, there's Nikki Glaser, Drew Barrymore. I can't think of everyone's names, like Steve-O, but
you know who? Travis Barker.
There's a lot. And I just see them like boom, boom, boom. And not even people maybe you even know, but people who are, they're like, look, it wasn't aligning with where I knew I could be. And it was ultimately hold me back from my potential. And I don't want that. You know, I've done all this work on all these other areas of my life. Why am I letting this thing kind of be have that same relationship as exercise did, as food did, you know, as taking care of people did. So first week in doing it, and I woke up yesterday. Yesterday felt like the longest day in a good way because I woke up, I got ready, made breakfast. No, went to the grocery store, made breakfast, did laundry. You know, it was just one of those days. Whereas if I had gone out the night before, I would have been a bit more fatigued. And interestingly, last night I slept really well, and I didn't wake up once, which is not normal because I have 2 dogs that are waker-uppers. So that's my journey. I'll continue to share it with you guys. And
and that's not even to say like right now that's what you would like to do, and then in a year from now it might look different too. You know,
honestly, I look at some of the people I associate myself with or have in the past, and they are sitting here talking to me about all of their troubles around their weight and weight gain and money and this and that. And I'm just like, I know how much you drink.
Yeah.
Now
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't have that. Like I'm reading this book, the Alan Carr book on stop drinking without willpower, be a non-drinker is what it is. And I don't have that relationship with food, that, you know, hiding it from people or I'm sorry, drink, hiding it from people or any of that. Right. It was just the tolerance I was building, which was, I was like, fuck, like anything in extreme behavior is not good. Now, when I say extreme, I'm not like getting in fights or driving a car or, you know what I mean? But it still was, my tolerance to it is too high, and that's not okay. But again, I look at those people and I'm just like, I don't want to associate with it. Like if I have a problem, I'm going to figure out how to fix it.
So it's funny that you say that, because my mom and I were talking this week on our walk. I forget why. Because one of the things I think why it came up is because I was talking about this group and how they really don't. There's some times where they don't want their certain parents watching their kid and whatnot. And so I was like, I'd let my freaking parents raise my kid. And we were talking about like boundaries with family and whatnot, and how people could look at me and be like, well, you don't have a lot of problems, right? I have supportive parents. We have a home, we have well structure. We don't have financial insecurity. We don't have like a lot of insecurities that people face. And I said, yeah, but is that also though, because I've learned from my parents to be like, no, I'm not doing that. Or no, I'm not having this person in my life if they're like kind of this toxic figure or like kind of this tornado type figure.
Right.
And so is it more so that my parents and I have created structures around what we will and will not accept. Whereas a lot of people have like their mother, right? We'll go, okay, so say for you didn't establish boundaries with your mother, right? And they keep coming in and they keep doing this. And it's like, okay, I could solve this problem.
Right.
You have to tell her she can't come over.
Right.
And they go, well, yeah, but it's my mom. Okay.
Yeah.
She can't come over. Like, so like that's, so it's talking about like
Absolutely.
these people that you're hearing like, okay, well, you can stop drinking.
Right.
Like that's probably like $300 a week. If you're financially insecure and you're really concerned about it, like, it's like, okay, well then, how insecure not like insecure of like, oh, shaming myself, but like, how much are you struggling? Because if you're not struggling enough to cut out alcohol and you're spending $200 a month, like, or $200 a week, what are we really talking about here?
Well, and that's what the book talks about, is that you're brainwashing yourself into believing like, well, I can only be social if, it provides me emotional relief. Oh, it's doing something good for me. But it's like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, that's like my mother. It's my mother. She does come over. She does bake. She does cook, and she brings me things. It's like, okay, but every time she comes, it's coming
at the expense of what?
Yeah,
right.
It's really interesting.
Well, and even my. So if I go out and have alcohol, like, and again, my tolerance is high. I can feel my like gut feel inflamed.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way. So it's, again, everything in moderation. Except for crack and meth. But I think moderation is going to look very differently for me. I know if I can get through this period of like not doing it and then, bring that tolerance down. And then when I'm in front of it, I already have, it's kind of like we talked about the GLP-1, like don't do it, create a lifestyle around what that looks like. And then when you want to go into it and reincorporate it in, if I choose to, I might not.
Yeah.
Then we already have this set of like, okay, I know I have the non-alcoholic drinks. Like I know places to go. I know places to go where I can do other things and just sit. That was a big thing.
That's the hard part. Yes. It's like, you can't just go and sit because people are like, so you're just drinking club soda?
Well, no, that's like, where the non-alcoholic drinks come in.
Correct. And you're
not for them. It really is like, your brain doesn't know differently. But yeah, that after the game, he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I had to talk to Mark. I go, this isn't now, it's not the same anymore. Yeah. It's not, okay, what's the next place we're going to go to? Yeah. It's like when you talked about like apps and drinks, you guys used to like kind of bar.
Yeah. It totally changes like, because that's what Michael's like, well, it's like, well, I don't want to just eat. Like, I'm not like the whole point was like app and drink, know? And then like, for example, sometimes we would see like who had the cheapest silver tequila. That was like the best one, and so we would go to different, like one drink here, one drink there, and then see, and then we'd compare. But then it was like, well, now that I'm not doing that, like, what do we do?
Right. So
like,
games are fun. Like I was like, we have to find places where like there's pool or
activity.
Like darts. Right. So we'll see. And I guess I don't want to say scary. It's unknown. It's unknown territory. And I have, I showed you, I bought all these non-alcoholic drinks. It makes me even want to stay home a little bit more because I can control it here because there's not the, adaptogen drinks at certain places we go to. They might have a zero beer, which is fine. I can do that. I have the things I can bring to kind of give me a little,
buzzy,
relaxing feeling, whether that's CBD, adaptogens, like they do like mushrooms and stuff. Kava is another thing I've looked at, which is like a similar kind of, it's almost like niacin before pre-workout, that kind of like tingling feeling. So that was something that we talked about. I said, are you okay with that? Because we can still go out. Yeah. And go have you can have your couple of drinks. You can watch a game, but it's not going to be that kind of like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Because drinking, Christina, is let's go have fun. I've said this multiple times. I believe it through and through. Drinking allows me to play. Yeah. Because I didn't get to play a lot as a kid. And it allows me to be kind of spontaneous and fun and play. And I will say right now, in this very early part of the journey, it's kind of like I have to be a little bit more planny. So that gives me a little bit of an ick because I'm like, okay, who has what non-alcoholic drinks do they have there? Like whenever, but I think eventually, like I told him, I go, do you want to go to Disneyland this weekend? Like that's play for me. Right. And I can go have fun and like, be fine.
So are you guys going to
No.
Disneyland? Okay.
He goes, what?
Like,
And they say you can't do it if your partner's doing it.
Yes, you can.
I can do anything.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
By myself.
Because look at Michael and then look at me.
True. So I will let you guys know how it is. And again, I want the listeners to hear, I am not right at this moment trying to cut it out completely. I don't want to set myself up for failure.
Uh-huh.
However, I am changing. I'm creating a new relationship with alcohol.
Well, I think it's important that they also hear too, similar to like the way we coach clients, is you're making the choice, but allowing that choice to be flexible. This is what I want to do right now. In a year, it might look different. Or in 6 months, it might look different. You might decide like, okay, I'm going to kind of back off a little bit. And then when you go to Nashville, you may take a drink and be like, you know what? Actually, I don't want to.
Right.
Or you may take a drink and be like, okay, I'm ready. Like this is a good time period that I want to. And then you come back and you go back to your pre-diet that like Crystal was talking about, like, because you've already had the structure in place.
Yeah. No, we'll see what it looks like. So
yeah,
that's that. Well, and I think this kind of goes into our conversation today about like change. We're really talking about diets, right? And how motivation fades because we have these systems in our brains, both our reward system, right? So like, yay, I did this. And I
like
was
positive regard.
Right. Exactly. I was very much like, yes, I did it, and
I didn't drink.
And then we came home and I put on comfy pants and we watched a show and
I woke up feeling good.
And yay, all positives, right? And those small wins, right, along the way. However, there might be a time, I don't know this because I've done the mindset work, but there might be a moment where that motivation fades. And I wanted to bring this up because it's actually a part of our brain. And if we can begin to recognize what it looks like, we can almost hijack the system and really create a lifestyle that minimizes the response. So I want to talk about like what are the reward and anti-reward system, which we're talking about today. So your reward system, it comes from dopamine, which is one of our main neurotransmitters. And dopamine is it almost motivates your behavior, right? So it's not just about pleasure. It spikes the anticipation of the reward. So exactly what I was just talking about. It's a nice day out. I'm thinking about the patio. I'm thinking about that drink. I'm anticipating it being something positive, right? And so it's not just getting the drink itself or the food. It's the anticipation that it's going to provide me something positive. And in both cases, food can provide you something positive, but when we're using it as like a coping skill, it doesn't, right? Drinking obviously doesn't necessarily do that. We just believe that it does, but you don't chase the reward. You actually are chasing the dopamine release that you're anticipating you're going to get from receiving that reward. Now, the opposite to that is the anti-reward system. And I'm going to read off my notes here. There's this theory called the opponent process. This is a system activated when you experience sustained or excessive stimulation or stress, even from something that's making a big life or health change, right? So this stress around it, maybe your thought process around it is very negative. Okay, so when your brain senses that something pleasurable or goal-oriented, like changing your diet or routine, becomes too overwhelming, it triggers a counterbalance to bring you back to emotional baseline. And that's where those negative feelings, dread, and low motivation come in.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. I didn't know that. Yes. As far as like, so basically, let's say this. I'm going to take a person, not me. I don't like my body anymore. I know I'm going to change my eating behaviors. And so I know I'm going to go to the Sprouts and I'm going to get all the healthy things. And I'm going to look at the labels now and start reading those. And then I'm going to schedule to work out every day.
Right.
So then your body or your brain goes, yeah, cute.
Right. Well, initially it's like, oh, look, and I lost weight for the first week.
Yeah.
So you're like, yay. And then you anticipate you lose that weight again.
Oh,
next day,
okay. Yeah.
But then you ate a little bit more salt.
Right.
And then the brain's like, wait, what?
They didn't lose weight again.
Right.
Okay.
Or you're just tired of eating the chicken and eating all the Sprouts things, or you're tired of doing the workout because you've ultimately what you've done is created too much change that the stress overrides the system, the dopamine reward system, and that anti-reward kicks in and is like, bitch, please.
Okay. So then this is where we self-sabotage?
Yeah.
Or,
basically, or lose motivation.
Okay.
Right? And the brain is designed for that. Like your brain is designed to keep you alive. So if it's constantly receiving this stress response, right? So it has a dopamine response. Yay, love that. But if all of this stress is required to get that dopamine response, then it's going to be like, no, girl, we're not doing that. And again, just coming back to my experience, if I was to just cold turkey, yes, that works for a lot of people, but I've chose to kind of go this other route of like,
seeing.
What is that?
Seeing.
Yeah.
Just like backing off here, changing this here.
Right. Maybe adding a little something here.
Having a day where you did drink a little bit too much and then you realize like, oh, okay. I get that where that came from.
Yeah. I just don't want to feel that way anymore. That's almost become the
That's
anti-reward.
Why, yes.
I don't want to feel that way. So that's an example of it. Like if I was to change this too quickly, and so I'm like, I'm completely sober and I'm going to, be in the sauna every day, go into the cold plunge every day. I'm going to dry brush to detox and I'm going to take all these supplements and blah, blah, blah. I probably wouldn't do it.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Well, I have all that's set up here.
But most people don't.
So, okay. So let's talk about dopamine seeking cycle. Okay. So we chase short-term rewards. So again, in our client's case, losing weight, right? And I think that's such a great example of like, okay, I want you guys to understand, once you start kind of looking at your food, and with us, we're going to just look at someone's food for the first 1 to 2 weeks. And usually we're not going to make a big change. We're going to say, okay, let's remove one meal out per day. Say someone's eating, let's swap that for a meal at home. As you just pay attention to your food, you're ultimately going to see the scale go down most of the time, solely because maybe we're just reducing sodium, or we're actually in that case, you wouldn't be in a calorie deficit, but there's, we're eating more whole foods, we're having better bowel movements, so on and so forth.
Reducing inflammation.
Thank you.
By the choices you're making of awareness.
Yes. So the scale's going to go down.
Okay.
Right. So the response, so I'm going to eat this way and I'm going to have this kind of anticipation of, because I'm eating this way, the scale's going to go down, which should happen on average over time. However, in your brain, you start getting fixated of stepping on that scale and seeing it go down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for you, when we make that our goal, and that's the only thing we're focusing on, scales fluctuate every single day, all day.
Yeah.
I went on the scale. I should have taken a picture of it. Like after I pooped and then after I ate.
I went on the scale before I pumped, after I pumped. Totally different. Yeah.
This is crazy.
So that makes sense then, because you're talking about like, okay, I get it's almost like your brain going, okay, I eat this way, I know I am equals weight loss, right? So then brain goes, yes, yes, yes. Then scale goes up. That goes into our flooding of overcompensation. So brain goes, yeah, no, you obviously didn't eat this way, or it's not going, you're not doing it just right, right? Because even if you did eat this way, the scale still went up, not understanding the fluctuations.
Right. Or the one thing I did actually want to add to that is what you had talked about too. And this is more common, is like, I've changed all of these things at once with the anticipation that the scale will go down, but, and maybe it does, but that changing everything at once is causing me too much stress because I haven't really figured out how to do that in my life.
Yeah.
So that's probably more common. And so the brain says, no, this change overrides the system. And I'm going to make you feel feelings around this change that no longer feel like a reward. I'm going to make you feel dread around getting up and going to your workout. Okay. Now. I'm going to make you feel dread around having
So there's the loss of motivation.
Correct.
That's so interesting how that happens in your brain.
Just from my notes, dopamine is released in anticipation, not just reward. So scrolling social media or chasing sugar doesn't make you feel better long term. It keeps you hooked. And we call this the reward predictor error. When reality doesn't match the expectation, motivation then crashes. Okay. Reality doesn't match the expectation. So again, I make all of the changes and maybe my body is like, the fuck?
Yeah.
And I see the weight go up. Or I make all the changes and I can't sustain them, right? But in my head, I'm still doing the changes, like restrictive eating.
Mm-hmm.
Might be restrictive eating, but end up in a binge. I, miraculously forget that I binged and just remember that I restricted. My reality doesn't meet what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lose motivation because I'm not seeing change.
Okay.
What were you going to say about that?
Well, I was thinking, like with the social media, and that's what keeps it so addicting, because they talk about social media and the dopamine hits, but it's like you're scrolling. One video makes you haha, and then it's like 20 more videos before you get your laugh again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like
a what do they call it?
A slot machine.
Slot machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So thinking of even like going back to dieting and whatnot. Oh, I got the hit from, we'll say keto, right? Then I stopped getting the hit from keto. Okay, so then I try Optavia, and then I try this, and then I try this, and then I try maybe like doing the Whole30, and then I get that. Right. Okay, so ding, ding, ding. So it's the diet. Okay, so and then they keep cycling through.
Yep.
Because that's what hit last time. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great example.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I'm just going to keep trying different things to get that reward, but I'm not being consistent with anything. Right. So
and then there goes in the overwhelming part too, because I mean, when you take on like a Whole30, like I remember looking at it and being like, oh, I can't do that.
No.
Like it's so much.
Right.
And then it's only for 30 days. And it's like, so now I have all these ingredients that, are Whole30 approved. And then what? Like, because you have to buy like a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. So just going into a couple more examples. So like overtraining, right?
Yeah.
It can lead to elevated cortisol and lower dopamine sensitivity. So that's just naturally happening.
Yeah.
So if you're overtraining, you're actually reducing the dopamine effects of exercise. Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy.
Yes.
Happy people don't shoot their husbands.
Yes.
And so that can result in like injury and fatigue, restrictive eating. There's that initial dopamine hit of being in control. The anti-reward system triggers cravings, binges, and guilt. Also, there's a book called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lembke, and she calls this the pain-pleasure balance. The more you push the pleasure side, the more pain rebounds on the other side. It's so fascinating because you hear it all the time. You guys probably listening be like, oh shit, I didn't realize like mentally I was causing this in myself.
Pain.
Right. And we want this process to be pleasurable for clients.
That would make sense, because thinking of the clients that come to us at some point, usually they're so done with themselves, their body, their lifestyle, everything. They're just dieting. They're just done. Mm-hmm. And I would say most clients that have come to us have tried other things before. We're usually not their first stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so it again, going like, okay.
We're never their first stop.
Yeah. Well, it's like all of this cycle is coming through of like, this is putting into what we experience on our side of seeing the client, and the experience that most people face, and why it's happening is because of your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Your beautiful brain. Because guess what? It all starts with your beautiful brain. I don't know if you guys have heard this before on a really cool podcast, that it all starts with your mind and your brain. So the ways that this kind of, if we're thinking about women's health, we need to understand the systems that we can create for long-term change, right? And consistency. And, that's the difference between like rewarding yourself with food versus feeling guilty afterwards, right? We need to understand like how do we get in front of these patterns that keep us in this reward, anti-reward. I mean, if you're thinking about it in layman's terms, it's that black or white thinking, right? So we want to give you some strategies on how to manage this. And the first is intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. I was on a group call, and Kelly had mentioned this when we
Kelly
were talking.
O'Connor, your client.
Yes.
Okay. Kelly.
Yeah. Who she had mentioned these particular terms. I go, thank you for the next episode, but I forgot we already put this in. So intrinsic motivation is when we are motivated by our own selves. So we have a sense of autonomy, a sense of agency. There's this feeling of enjoyment of what we're doing, a sense of mastery around it because we put so much work and time in the thing. Right? We don't master anything with reducing carbs on our diet. I'm not going to master shit other than mastering yo-yo dieting. So I guess you do master something. But this kind of intrinsic motivation leads to long-term change versus external or extrinsic motivation when we're doing it to have people perceive us look a certain way. So then we're good. I mean, again, diet culture has told us, like, you're only good if you're a size whatever or you weigh whatever. We're only, extrinsically, we're also thinking I'm good if I eat a certain way, if I eat clean, if I do a certain amount of workouts, then I have quality controlled checklist, as I called myself. So intrinsic motivation needs to be, you being able to decide what this looks like. So exactly my story. I'm deciding what sobriety or soberishness looks like for me. Everyone's journey could be different. And yes, there's a lot of people who take one road. I'm choosing not to do that because I know who I am. And now I'm kind of playing through this lifestyle change of like, okay, what does this look like? How can I master this for me? Not anyone. I don't give a shit. I don't care if it worked this way for this person or whatever. This is my process. So, and because I'm doing this now, yes, I'm a coach, so I know how to coach myself. I feel excited about it. And I get that motivation of like, oh, look, you did it. You did it your way. You still went out. You were around people who were drinking. You were perfectly fine. That works for you. Keep going. Right. So that's, for me, helps motivate me more than if I was obviously doing it.
It's interesting because I was thinking like, okay, how could I relate to like myself in this, or like the postpartum or like pregnancy clients that I work with. And I would say, as far as like being a parent, I could see where your external like validation that you're seeking coming from, like, we have the perfect party, right? We have correct. Like, we have the perfect pictures, we have all this, like, we show up, we do the thing, they are in dance, they're in this, and like, you're putting on a show with your kids essentially all the time, but yet your home life is chaotic. The kids are chaotic, they're screaming, they're crying, they don't actually want to do dance,
right?
Like, and the party cost you X amount of dollars, that kind of put you in the red for the month,
right?
But whereas if you think about what works best for your internal family system, and to be transparent, that's something that I've had to work on myself, of like wanting to please all of these people that are professionals in their what they do. And I want to make sure like I'm doing the best for my kid, but that was also causing me a lot of chaos, and Michael and I, some sense of conflict.
Right.
And he but he was like, look, we have to do what works for us instead of listening to these people and trying to do what they think is best, because they're not in our day to day.
And that's exactly how we coach. Right. Like, and we work on ensuring that we're not projecting our own lifestyle onto our clients.
Yes.
Right. Which is huge. Like, you don't drink as much, you might have a client that drinks more than you. You figure out how that works for them, or whatever that looks like. I mean, I have clients who, when they get together, they do some mushrooms and they make like a smorgasbord of meat. Someone goes, you should do mushrooms. I'm like, calm down, everyone.
Like, talk to Amanda.
But maybe. And just, again, what does this look like if, and I asked this to a client, what does eating look like? What is a good, I'm saying it in air quotes, day or balanced day of eating look like if you were to create it? She had a hard time with that question. What is balanced exercise like? If you didn't have this extrinsic motivators of these diet culture and social media influencers, what would it look like for you? Well, honestly, I'd only like to work out 2 days a week. Let's go.
Well, but here's the thing, because I'm thinking of a client in particular where it would be like, well, honestly, I'd work out like every day for 60 minutes. And it's like, okay, then why? And why? And why? Because there's probably a reason behind that. And even like there's a lot of internal family things that happen, that the messages you start to, as we always say, the messages you start to receive, and then your life becomes kind of curated around those messages. Whereas what's your real internal belief? Like, is it that you want to work out every day because you think the body's going to change?
Right.
Or because you truly enjoy it? Because that's different.
Yeah. Do you like to move every day? There's a difference between moving
and thinking what I'm doing is going to change my body, which would change how I feel about myself.
Right. I personally think that I love a 3-day workout with a kind of flex day. And then we talk about this, Liberty and I have different routes that we take. And then yesterday, honestly, I just did busy work. I have to talk about this. I'm watching this girl that cleans things on TikTok.
I like a good cleaning. I know.
And she has all her stuff on Amazon. I was like, what if I just buy all of this? It would be like $12,000. Like, I probably don't need all of it. But like this, anyways.
Like ceiling fan cleaner.
Because I was feeling good, I started cleaning. Like I started, organizing things. It is spring clean. And I ended up having 8,000 steps. I'm like, this is my movement today, and I used to be the person who was like, no, I like to get my tasks done during the week so I can actually just be off on the weekend. But I've kind of shifted that because it's like, no, have Sunday be your rest day, but you get a little bit of movement, you get things clean. Things being clean makes me happy, obviously, because I'm like watching all her TikToks. She provides me dopamine. Mm-hmm. I'm like, ooh, look at that's so clean. Mm-hmm. So anyway, all right.
Okay, number two,
habit formation tips. So focus on identity-based goals, right?
Okay.
Instead of, these outcome-based goals. So I'm someone who manages her drinking. I'm someone who, moves daily rather than I'm someone who has to exercise every day versus that kind of chasing the dopamine hit. Like I need I would say six packs, gonna sound like drinking, but dopamine of like, I need to look a certain way. The scale needs to be a certain way because again, that scale number, is the least consistent thing a part of this process. It really, truly, but that's that dopamine hit. Like I need to eat clean because that tells me I'm good. Right. So those two coming together, I'm good, external. We learned that outside of ourselves. It wasn't here.
Here is where
clean
for the people who are just listening.
What was that?
You said here and you pointed to your head.
Right.
So I was saying here is where for the people who are just listening.
Yeah. The mind. So those two things coming together of like my habits equal this extrinsic thing. So making the habits enjoyable, right? So for me, I mix some days it's music and I have a playlist called Feel Good Music Playlist. Usually that's a Saturday thing because I can kind of turn it up and do my thing. I have educational podcasts versus like my little reality TV podcasts. I get to go with my dog. She gets to train a little bit when I'm moving. Meal prep wise, and we've talked about this often, and I don't really meal prep, but I have foods in my house that are enjoyable. Today I had a full blown, bagel with some butter, egg whites with spinach, tomatoes, feta cheese. It was delicious.
So one thing for the habits I wanted to talk about is for clients that aren't sure that the habits that they have are with them. So like sometimes I'll get clients who do enjoy working out, do have a good system with it, do enjoy making like an 80-20 kind of nutrition, but they don't believe that they are that. So they try and hold on to that control still. And so my question always to them is like, what if this is just who you are and just part of you?
Yeah.
Like, what would that feel like? They're like, well, yeah, and I'm like, why don't we start believing that? Because then we don't have to feel so out of control and then over control to compensate for it. Yeah. Because the habits that you've created, someone who moves daily, that's just something you do. It's not something that you think, it's not on your to-do list because you're done. It'll be done.
Right.
And so that's why, like for clients that are in a different perspective of like, instead of trying to do all this right now, that are maybe a little bit further along in understanding what exercise and nutrition means to them, is believing that that's part of you rather than trying to prove it.
Right. Or, thinking like I eat clean because I want to lose weight.
Right.
No, you eat nutritious foods in moderation because that's who you are.
Makes you feel better.
You're respecting yourself, your body, and you also get to enjoy foods as well. Like I am someone who is balanced. And again, coming back to this whole alcohol talk, like if I'm going to say I'm someone who's balanced, that was the one thing off balance.
Yeah. It was extreme or not.
Right. And so it was something I needed to manage. And again, everyone's like, what were you doing on the weekends? Like compared to the normal person, if you had 2 drinks, if I had 6 drinks, we'd be the same.
Yeah.
Which is terrible.
Well, and so like from
calories.
your that's
or
a lot
660 calories with Coors Lights.
Well,
Coors Light doesn't make a zero.
In your defense, it's not like you were like a drunken a-hole.
No.
But it was just like, I mean, if you're having to plan for 600 calories every week, that's quite a lot of structure in your weekday. And then those 600 calories, it's not even food. It's not even nutrients.
Right.
It's just alcohol. So it's kind of like, well, what am I really doing?
I just see how it affects other people. And like, I'm in full blown perimenopause and I'm like, I don't want to be that person that has this. Yeah, no. So
Number three,
balance the systems with training and nutrition. So periodize training to avoid burnout. Obviously have your recovery days, your deload weeks. This will allow dopamine sensitivity to reset rather than I have to work out every day. I have to exercise for an hour and 30 minutes every single day only to burn out. So rest. Rest. Do something you enjoy. Do you like to hike? Do you like some gentle yoga? Do you like just sitting on the couch?
Sometimes.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes. My hips hurt though.
Sitting on the couch.
What would you say about food?
I would say for food, we need to be flexible. So thinking of extremes, don't have to have it perfect. Don't always have to track calories, God forbid, but also give yourself some lax. But that doesn't mean, oh, I laxed. Now I get to just kind of go free willy on this.
Right.
So there's always going to be flexibility. Like it is okay to have, like yesterday, I had ice cream, like, because Bluebell has great ice cream. And there's Bluebell at the birthday party. So had some ice cream, right? But today that doesn't mean like I'm going to cut my calories or make sure I go all whole natural foods because I had that ice cream.
Right.
So always thinking of like what works for me and my systems. And even like we talk a lot about mostly having whole foods, but even if you have to go out to eat, like for our clients that travel a lot or host clients a lot, you can make choices at the restaurant that align with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you say we're going to like Steak 44, I'm going to get a little bit more indulgent. Whereas if we're going to, where it's like another one, like maybe Buck and Ryder, which so kind of the same, but kind of not. Right. But if I know I'm going to both of those, so the Buck and Ryder is like kind of a steakhouse, sushi, seafood, whereas Steak 44 is like a high end steakhouse. If I know I'm going to do both this week, then maybe my Buck and Ryder like meal, I'm not having as indulgent because I rather have the Steak 44. So practicing flexibility there.
For sure. And this is something that we're talking about in the Resilient Woman Reset, the 21-day challenge. And, creating that balance, right? And going through the sustainable eating quadrant with each one of the clients and having them begin to look at this, like, what does this look like for me? What are foods that I love that are nutrient dense that I can get more of because I enjoy the way they taste, right? And then that's nice because you have that list. So when you are at the restaurant, you're like, oh, they have salmon. I love salmon, right? And, they have some Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts. Yeah, it comes with some mashed potatoes. So I'm going to eat the love foods first. And then I do actually love mashed potatoes.
Me too.
It's on my pleasurable side of my quadrant. So I know that's the salmon and the Brussels I eat first because I want to get as much of that in. Then I have that love food and I eat that mindfully and also pay attention to how full I am. So that's something we're working on in like currently in this moment is building each person's quadrant.
Cool.
So that they can, throughout this 3-week process, start to, incorporate some of those foods in. So,
well, and going into number 4, all of these 3 things leading up to number 4 is going to give you a different mindset perspective as well. So when we find that, like, I don't need to overindulge, I don't need to over exercise, like that dopamine that you're going to get is going to be a lot more steady.
Yes.
Right. Instead of these big hits, massive fails, big hit, massive fail. I'm going to get these little micro doses throughout the day and throughout the week.
Yep.
And that's going to feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And what you're getting your dopamine hit from. So instead of the scale going down, it's going to be going for the walk and being like, oh, that was so nice. Like, okay, I'm like going for a walk every day. Isn't that great? Like even my cousin, she's like doing some app and she's like, I've never worked out like for more than 15 days and I'm on day 30. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. And she's doing it like in her little apartment. I'm like, that's great. Yes. You should do that.
Absolutely. And you need to just recognize those big urges, right? So when I think about it's a nice day out, my brain goes, we're going to go on. I think of the same place. It's that little patio at the Biltmore. And every time I've been there, it's their clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Biltmore golf course.
Yeah.
Every time I've been there, it's like I have
reinforcing. Yeah.
Orange blossom. Right. And then we have the chips and the guac and da-da-da. So I have to stop and I have to stop. I did that this weekend. I stopped and I was like, no, you're going to enjoy the game, watch some basketball, be with your husband. Everything else is
reconnect.
Yeah, that's it. So really recognizing those dopamine urges. Now, the same is true with the binging. We haven't even really touched on that part, which binge eating is this anticipation that I'm going to have the cake and it's going to bring me something, right? Just like if I have the drink, it's going to bring me something, when I know myself right now can't just have one. And honestly, why would I have just one if my tolerance is that high?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like useless to me. But I was making up in my head, if I just have one, it's going to be fine. And then I'll have this moderation over it. No, it's not providing you anything positive. It's actually providing you a very negative response. You need to check yourself and tell yourself, no, that is not what's going to happen. I know that. I'm a master in knowing that I'm not getting anything good out of that. So I'm just going to have to walk away and do, like you talked about, do something that brings you a little microdose of dopamine, because the urge is kind of that when you're like, but I need it. And I get it, guys. I understand this. You understand this. It feels so real in the moment, but you have to I want you to literally physically go step back, take 2 steps back when you have that urge, and be like, hold the phone, hold on. I know the truth. Use your logic, connect back to yourself, clarity, connectedness. I know this is not true, right? Just take the pause, right? Practice distress tolerance, as you're talking about. Sit with the discomfort. I had to do that this weekend. Like, you're okay. Like, everything's fine, right? I drank the 5 of those ultras, and I was like, that would have been alcohol.
Yeah.
And like having this and then I go, wait, why am I drinking 5? And I go, well, because before you're drinking to catch a buzz.
So you know you had to reach like a certain number before you got the buzz?
Not necessarily, but I would just drink them so fast to catch that buzz. And I was like, oh, and I turned to Mark, I go, I don't have to drink these this fast. And he goes, no, you don't. I go, okay. And then I like sipped on one. I know.
That's so funny.
It's true.
Like, what is that? What am I chasing?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not chasing a buzz. I'm like, I like the way, and in the book, they're like, you don't like the way alcohol tastes. And I go, maybe I don't. Maybe it's this facade in my brain, but I do. So, yeah. And then ask yourself, is this motivation coming from fear and guilt or from alignment with my goals and myself? So if you're motivated out of fear, punishment, hate, when has anyone motivated you that way? I don't give a fuck if you listen to David Goggins. That's that mentality. That's a Goggin mentality.
You know, it's so fun. Where was I? I think it was the Facebook group. This gal, this was a couple weeks ago. She was like saying how she just essentially needs someone to like kind of yell at her and beat her up a little bit to get her motivated. And I thought, oh, wow, like here's our program.
I feel like, when has that served?
Yeah. Like, well, and that's what I think. I can't even remember because I'm sure it was a while ago. And I remember being like, interesting. Have you felt that way before about like exercise and needing to be motivated? And I'm sure she was like, ghost.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why are you guys in our group if you're not going to actually want coaching? By the way, we do have a Facebook group for those of you listening. If you want to like talk to us directly, it's the Women's Weight Loss and Workout Support Group. We'd like more of our listeners in there because of the name, we get a lot of people who ask questions, but then don't want our answers.
Yeah.
Because we don't fuck around.
It's interesting.
Anything else on this?
No.
I think this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of a different view.
Well, where the dopamine, that motivation is coming from. Because you hear about dopamine dump. And it's like, okay, but what does that actually mean? Like in the processes of it.
Ooh, you just made me think of the dopamine from like relationships and like dating.
Oh yeah.
You know, how you're like, get that dopamine hit when he like treats you nice.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't. You stick around. Dating deja vu. All right. Well, thank you guys. We hope you found this interesting. Again, another little simple change in view. One of these days it'll hit and you'll be like, oh, I get it now. Every client says, you've told me this over and over again, but it was this way that you said it, that it actually finally hit. Great. If you haven't already, please make sure you have subscribed to our YouTube or followed us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts now. That's a new thing.
Google has podcasts?
I guess.
Okay.
Google Play Store. Maybe that's where it is.
Sure.
We have a new editor. Her name is Paula. Hi, Paula.
Hey, Paula.
Thank you guys for the reviews. We'd love more. This is the easiest way for us to get in front of other people. I honestly feel like we're on a great trajectory. Welcome our new listener, Shorty, and she commented on a few of our episodes,
Cute.
as well as our former client. Her name is R. Burnett on the comment, even though I call her something else. Thank you for our new listeners. I think we should shout out new listeners.
We should shout out new listeners.
Guess what we're going to do? Shout out new listeners. Now, if you're a new listener and you love this, again, we'd love a 5-star rating and review. So other than that, we're in our 21-day Resilient Women Reset. We have all of our coaching programs intact. So if you would like more information on that, check out the show notes below for our Clarity Call link. And that's it. Other than this,
what you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.